Are you a mom who struggles with self-doubt? Do you, like me, feel guilty and ashamed when you yell at your kids? If so, you are not alone. Social media and mainstream entertainment gaslight us every day with images of perfect, patient, adoring moms who make motherhood look easy. This makes us think there must be something wrong with us, when in reality, motherhood is much harder than it looks. This week, my guest, Sue Holt, a life coach for moms, shares insights and strategies to help moms feel more confident and less overwhelmed. Thanks for listening. Welcome to the Impostor Syndrome Files. My name is Kim Menninger, and as an executive coach and former high-tech leader, my personal mission is to help women and others overcome imposter syndrome and advance your career with confidence. Each week, I interview a new guest to share how they've navigated self-doubt to achieve success. The more we share our stories, the more we destigmatize imposter syndrome, recognize that we're not alone, and empower ourselves to access the tools and resources that can help us. Thank you so much for listening and sharing. Hello, Sue. I'm so excited that we're finally here today. I would love to start by inviting you to introduce yourself.
So, hello, Kim. I'm so excited to be here. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And I am Sue Holt. I am the founder of Mommy's Life Coach. I also am a mother of four, and I still kind of identify as a stay-at-home mom. I've been a stay-at-home mom for the past 16 years. So yeah, that's my...
Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey? How did you get to start your business? What were you doing before?
Yeah. So I was like I said, stay-at-home mom. I had 3 children in 3 years, and 2 miscarriages. And then 3 years later, I had my 4th son. I was exhausted, to say the least, physically and mentally. I really lost myself. I really did not know who I was anymore. So I was in a mom's group, and there was a woman that came and talked to us about just writing our 5-year goal. And I just started to cry and shake, and like, I don't even know what I want to do in 5 years. I don't even know what I'm doing now. I feel like a horrible mom. I'm just a mess and yelling all the time. And so I thought, I want to be this woman. I want to be a life coach that helps moms, because I just felt so overwhelmed to the point of like exhaustion. And I also ended up in the hospital for a couple of days. I had no range of motion in my back. I think it was due to living on sugar and coffee, and it just being like just the physical demands of it all. Just kind of, my body just was like, nope, we can't do this anymore. Like, we need to shut down. So, so then I just kind of made it like a mission, so that we need to talk about the self-doubt that moms experience. Especially, I say I'm a coach that helps moms who yell at their kids. And everyone says that. So I'm like, great, I'm not alone. And there's just so much shame in that, because we think, oh God, I'm such a bad mom. Like, and there's so many clues, or I don't want to say clues, maybe like, there's so many things in society that teaches us that, or tells us that moms are supposed to not yell at their kids, and they're supposed to be compassionate, and they're supposed to be patient. And they're like, I mean, if you watch any movie, like, no kids are being yelled at, and my kids are like, yeah, mom, that's nothing like you. But Yeah. And I just find like the more that we talk about it, the less shame we have around it, the less guilt we have. And I also try and, well, not try, but part of my coaching is that we talk about ways to manage it. And we call it mom rage. So yeah, so that's how I got into it. I think that was a really long-winded answer, but
That was perfect. I think that you have set us up nicely for an important conversation, because just the way you described that makes me think about more generally the reason for putting this podcast together. Because I think that when we look around and we see these very carefully curated versions of other people, and whether that's on social media or just even in our workplaces or our communities, where people don't generally lead with the bad stuff, right? And so we think everyone else has it all figured out. Everyone else is doing this so much more gracefully, so much better than I am. There must be something horribly wrong with me. And so when you said moms who yell at their kids, right? Like, I was like, oh, thank God.
yeah.
I think that's probably, some hidden secret that so many of us as moms have. We feel terrible that we do it, but how do you not, right? We live in these really stressful worlds. The last 2 years have been utter chaos. And I don't know how you survived homeschooling and all that entailed without getting frustrated. Like you cannot be this picture of patience that's expected when life is upside down and you have no idea what you're doing. So
exactly. And I mean, in the past 2 years, we've been becoming homeschool teachers, which we never thought we would be. I was actually a teacher. I was even worse teaching my own kids. So we never thought that. We never thought, although a lot of women were not, and men, no one was really in the workforce. We were all home at that time, but the demands of motherhood wasn't really, we still were cleaning up the kitchen. We still were doing all the household chores, plus being a teacher, plus doing our jobs, and then plus becoming burnout.
Right? Absolutely. So can you say more about your approach to mom rage?
Yes. So, I think number one is talking about it takes away the shame, it takes away the power, and it takes away that guilt that you feel, right? So telling a friend. Now, it's not something like you're not going to drop off your kid in the car line and be like, I just screamed at him because he didn't put his shoes on for 5 minutes. That never really happens, right? So finding someone we love, like, and trust to just, not admit it, but just talking about it is let's go with the shame. And then number two, I'm finding the more and more moms that I talk to, that feeling of mom rage comes, and people describe it as, and this one woman described it and it was like perfect. It feels like a bottle that's being shaken, and then the neck of the bottle is about to explode. And that's how you feel. Then you open up the cap and then it's like an explosion, right? So we're talking about throughout like our, in our coaching sessions, what is getting us to that point, right? We don't just wake up and feel that, right? What's getting us there? So finding out your triggers, and I would say 90% of the moms is there's not enough me time, especially moms of little children. One woman would say, and I'm sure we've all done this, we lock ourselves in the bathroom for 5 extra minutes when they're little, because you're just like, I just need 5 minutes, So figuring out ways throughout the day or throughout the week or throughout your life that you are able to have me time. And throughout different stages of the mom game, it's going to look different. Now my kids are a little bit older, so I can take an hour to myself. right? When they were younger, 15 minutes was huge, right? And even in those 15 minutes, I was so physically tired. So I think I would just stare at the wall for 15 minutes, right? And that was okay. Now my me time's a little different, maybe going to a workout class or, something more, a massage or something that I'm able to do more, but really focusing on when you're feeling like you're about to explode, then what is triggering it? And definitely 9 times out of 10, it's not enough me time that you're taking for yourself. So, yeah.
It sounds like there's a proactive and I'm sure a reactive approach to this, right? So it sounds like if you're in this situation, then you're probably not getting enough of that space. And if you were to create more time for yourself, there'd be less of that.
Right.
Getting to that point.
Yeah. And then it's like a vicious cycle. Like you're not doing that. And then you feel like, then it's like a snowball, and then by the end, you're just like, and then mom rage, and then you're freaking out and yelling at everybody, right? Losing it. A lot of moms like that term. So it's almost like trying to prevent it. Now, when we're doing that, we also need to set up boundaries, delegate, prioritize, set your values, know your values. What do you value? Do you value integrity? Do you value authenticity? Do you value health? If those are the cases, then boundaries need to be set throughout the day. And also remembering that you're still I don't want to say still, but you're still a good mom if you take time for yourself. We don't have to be everything. We can't, because when we are, that's when we just, feel that bottleneck explosion and we lose it. Right. So also, I don't want to say lowering expectations, because, you always want to have like a high expectation of yourself, but unrealistic expectations is huge. A lot of moms that experience mom rage are also perfectionists themselves. Not so much they're perfectionists for their children. They want their children to be perfect, but they have unrealistic expectations for themselves. I remember when I had my 4th son, and I had a 6-year-old, a 4.5-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And then I was nursing every, 25 minutes, it felt like. And then, the amount of things that I thought I could get done in a day was absolutely unrealistic. Like, there's no way you're going to take all 4 of them to the food store, and get everything on your list. There's just no way it's going to happen. So, that's a huge one. Setting realistic expectations, and being self-aware of them. Like, if I take all 4 of them to Target at 12 o'clock, they're going to want the hot dog, right? They're going to want to eat something. They're going to, so just, just being realistic and knowing kind of, what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well,
because, yeah.
It sounds like although it's probably easier said than done in the moment, because there is so much, we're also frazzled right now, but it sounds like one of the things that you're saying is to plan ahead and to really be mindful of the rhythms of your children's schedules and lives too, right? To that point, don't take them somewhere during lunchtime and expect that they're not going to be cranky or hungry or
yeah, definitely. Yes. I remember taking them to the food store, and this woman she was one of the clerks, and she came up to me, and my newborn was screaming because he was hungry, and she looked at me, she's like, "Sue, what are you doing?" What are you doing bringing them now at lunchtime? I'm like, I know, but we needed food. And, so definitely planning things out and setting realistic expectations. Yeah.
And You mentioned boundaries, which I think is such an important
Mm.
part of this conversation. And I think it's something that many of us struggle with in lots of different areas of our lives. Like, what do boundaries look like to you?
So that is a great point. And I do think that I feel like boundaries are kind of they tend to get like, and it everyone talks about them all the time. And it kind of gets like, okay, boundaries, but it's overused, I guess what I'm trying to say. So setting boundaries um may look like, for example, yes, I can probably drive my 16-year-old to his girlfriend's at 7:30. However, at 7 o'clock, I planned on um, getting together with a bunch of, say, hockey moms. He's a hockey player. So, um, and you know what, Michael? No, I won't use his name. Oh, I should. You know what? I can't drive you there, hon. I've set this, and this is what I'm doing. And people say like, oh, you have to put yourself first. But let's be real. When you're a mom, you don't. But you also need to be in the equation of your family, right? Not everybody else is first and then us, right? We're all equal and we're all in the same equation.
Mm.
Realistically, right? Like we said before, um, yeah, being a part of the equation and, doing things that you do want to do too, doesn't make you a bad mom. If you like to go out with your girlfriends on Thursday night, then you should go out with your girlfriends on Thursday night. Doesn't mean you're a bad mom. And just kind of giving yourself like a break, you don't have to be you don't have to be everything for everybody all the time. I think a lot of us get like this. I did anyway. Like I have to do everything for them. Like I can't even ask my husband for help. I can't ask my mom for help because my mom didn't have help. So she had to do it all. So I have to do it all. And it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
We don't have to do it all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a really important piece too, is the asking for help, because
Mm.
I remember when I was pregnant with my older son, thinking, I'm going to make this look easy, right? I'm not going to be one of those moms that says she hasn't been able to take a shower all week. Like, I'm going to be able to do this, right? And so I was so exhausted and and I had postpartum depression with my older son too, that I didn't treat because I didn't want to go on medication, because I knew I wanted other children. And so it was just like this unnecessary emotional and physical stress. And I didn't want to ask for help. I was like, I'm going to rock this whole mom thing, right? Like my husband's going to think I'm a superhero. And so I didn't ask for help. And then when my younger son was born 5 years later, because we had a bunch of miscarriages too, I was like, I never got a medal for doing this on my own. I'm like, all right, your turn.
Yeah.
All right, your schedule is this, right? And it's made such a difference. I'm like, why did I torture myself? So we think that there's some kind of, I don't know what it is, like bragging rights or pride that comes with doing things on your own, but that's not throughout our civilization. That is not how families have gotten to where they are, right? I mean, in more recent times, if you think about it over a longer period of time, generally speaking, more recently, we've become more independent. But for most of our human experience, we have leveraged our family members and our communities to help raise our children. And now we think that there's something really, I don't know, special about doing it on your own. Why? Why do we do that to ourselves?
You're so true. Oh my gosh. I had a conversation with my grandmother. So she had 6 children. And I remember I said to her, oh my gosh, Granny, like, how did you do it? How did you have 6? And she was like real tough and funny. She's like, we didn't play with our kids like you did. She's like, she's like, your Uncle Patrick, he lived his life in the pack and play or the playpen till he was about 5. And she's like, and she goes, everybody helped out. Like, Mrs. O'Brien down the street, she would feed them lunch if the kids were there, or someone would watch them while you would go food shopping. And she's like, it really was a community. We really relied on everyone else. So, and I think you're right. I don't think we do that now.
No. And I think it's partly probably the way we live, right? Because we spread out and, not everyone lives near family or has the kind of relationships that they can rely on for that kind of support. But also I do think that the perfectionist piece is really important too, especially if we're moms who have, before we had kids, had some kind of a, whether it was academically, we really pushed ourselves or we pushed ourselves in the workplace. It's hard to let that go. And now when you have children, that's like the next arena that you want to excel in. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was a teacher before I had children. And it was funny. I was talking to a client of mine and she was a teacher as well. And I put so much pressure on myself because I actually thought like, oh, well, I was a teacher. Like, I'm going to be so great at this. I'm going to be the best mom ever. My kids aren't going to watch TV. My kids are going to do this. And like, whoa, yeah. School did not, it definitely doesn't help you get up in the middle of the night and nurse your child. Right. Like you don't get prepared for that part of it. But yeah, and I think judgment too is a big thing with moms. I do say to my clients, like, well, I feel like, I'm being really judged. And I'll say like, with all due respect, do you feel that you're judging other moms as well? Because when you feel like you're judging or when you feel like you're being judged, a lot of the times is you're judging other moms. And we've all done it. I have certainly done it. And then, my kids do the same thing. And you're like, oh, sorry, I said that. I mean, I would never say it out loud, but it's that moms are judged a lot, whether they work from home, they stay at home. And it's a silent kind of a judge, right? It's like a little look at like the PTA meeting it's tough. Excuse me. It's, nobody wants to feel like a bad mom. Right. And when another mom thinks that you're a bad mom, or you think that another mom thinks you're a bad mom, it's like, oh, like then you really like, it's like right to the heart. Right. So, I just encourage moms to not judge other moms as much. Yeah. And then, because then, the less you judge, then the less judgment you will feel. So
true. Yeah. I think it is such an easy trap to fall into when you already feel shame and guilt. Well, at least there's somebody who's doing it worse than I am. Right.
Yeah.
And you want to get self-righteous about that. And it's not helpful because, to your point, then you feel more judged. It doesn't make you feel better. It might make you feel better in that moment, but it's not a strategy that's sustainable.
Definitely not.
Back to what you're saying too about your grandmother, because I think this is a really important point and maybe something that we can all take a little perspective from. My mom didn't sit on the floor and play with. She was a stay-at-home mom for, much of my childhood. She didn't sit on the floor and play with us all day long. I mean, I do think we have different expectations of what parenting looks like these days than our parents did or our grandparents did. The hands-on nature of parenting these days, especially at a time when moms are busier than ever, is unfortunate, right? Because I think it's setting a bar that's impossible to meet.
Yeah. I agree. And I also just want to go back to you saying that your mom was a stay-at-home mom. So I was a stay-at-home mom, and I felt this immense amount of pressure to be the absolute best mom I could be because I was quote unquote lucky enough to stay home. So I thought that my house had to be spotless all the time. I thought that I had to be like the picture perfect mom, like, and I had to be, I had to work out and I had to make smoothies for all the kids because healthy moms make healthy smoothies for their healthy kids. And, and it was a facade because I was like breaking down, like physically and mentally. Like I just could not keep up with the pressure of it all. And I don't remember my mom ever playing with us.
No, or making
ever. No. It was peanut butter and jelly, whether you liked it or not.
Exactly. Yeah. Very simple.
Yeah.
Or with, that, like you said before too, like the neighbors' parents would feed us if we were down the street during the day. I mean, it just wasn't, we weren't expecting fine dining at every meal and weren't expecting their undivided attention at every moment. It's just a different time.
And I also think too, that we were able to, because our parents, I don't want to say didn't play with us, but it wasn't their job to entertain us. I think that we were able to entertain ourselves and not be so quote unquote, like bored. Like my grandmother would say, if he would say, I'm bored, she'd say, oh, boring people get bored. It must be boring, like, oh gosh. But like my kids now will be like, oh, I have nothing to do. And I'm like, you have plenty to do, So I think it's kind of a disservice for our kids because they don't know how to entertain themselves, right? They have to learn that, we can't always be their source of entertainment. And I'll say to my kids now that they're older, like, I am not your social director. I am not like, can this one come over? Like they're off today. And it's like, oh, can we go to trampoline park? Like, no, no, I have a podcast interview today and I have a client and like, find something to do. Yeah. So
very true. Wait, my older son is turning 12 this month and we live in this neighborhood that it makes me sad sometimes because I look at our neighborhood, which is full of kids of different ages. They don't know each other. My son got off the bus the other day and I was like, oh, who's that kid? I was like, I don't know. He didn't know his name. And I thought we would have all been playing together. It would have been something where it didn't matter how old you were, you would have all played together. They don't play outside. They play on the computer. He watches YouTube. His best friend lives 3 houses down. One time we had them over. My husband sent them outside. He didn't want them in front of the TV anymore. They didn't know what to do. They stood outside the window and just stared at my husband because they needed direction on how to play, and I think it's so true. We have created this world where they don't know how to independently entertain themselves. And it's really a disservice to them, as you said.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah. So funny. Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of people listening who are nodding their heads and thinking, thank God, I'm not the only one. Is there anything else that you would suggest that we do as frazzled moms or, just trying to cope with the realities of the experience?
I definitely think like there's so much hype about like self-care. I also think we have to buy a candle and then that's our self-care. Like, I think what moms really do need is to practice self-compassion, giving yourself a break, like, talking to yourself, like, some of the books will say like, talk to yourself like you would a baby. Like, I don't know about that, but talk to yourself as if you would talk to your best friend, right? Like, for example, the other night, my daughter was done dance at 8. I was in the middle of work, completely forgot. And she like calls me at like 8:15, like, are you coming? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I forgot, blah, blah, blah. And then the whole time I'm like, I'm such an idiot. Like, how can I forget that? Da, 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 da. She's there all by herself. She's a young girl, God forbid, And now if my best friend called me and said, oh, I forgot to pick up Matt, would I say to her, you're such an idiot. I can't believe you forgot. No. So talking to yourself like, Sue, of course you forgot. You have a lot going on. Why is she dancing until 8 o'clock at night anyway? No, but just like giving yourself a break and kind of talking to yourself the way you would talk like to your best friend.
That's a really important point too.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things too that I think about is we all grew up without parents who played with us at every turn, and we turned out okay, right? I think, if you think about it from that perspective too, kids are very resilient. They don't have the same expectations of us that we have of us. I think that, while we joke about the fact that, our kids are going to be in therapy because of the things that we do, right? There's plenty of stuff that they'll be in therapy for that we have no control over. I don't think that not playing with them 24/7 or entertaining them or giving them smoothies and healthy food at every meal, right, is going to be one of those things, right? I think kids grow up, they have their own lives and form their own values, and everyone's going to be fine.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. And I do say this to moms all the time. Mom, like kids do not need a perfect mom. They just need you. They don't, like, you were given that child, whether it was biologically or not, for a reason. That's what they need. They don't need to see the picture perfect mom. They need to see the real mess of life. And they need to see that you're a real person. And, guess what? I can't like do it all. Like, they need to see also like you enjoying yourself. They really need to witness that. And I was like miserable when I wasn't showing them that, and they didn't need to see the miserableness, like it came out, still does, not saying it's gone. But yeah, so
that's powerful too.
Yeah.
That's a really powerful way to think about it, is they want the real you, right? They don't want the curated you. And if you're trying to be someone that you're not, if you're trying to be perfect, that they can sense that the misery that lies beneath that will seep out in lots of different ways, whether it's the rage, right, or something else. And so I think that's a really good way to take some of the pressure off.
Yeah.
Wow. This was such a great conversation, Sue. Where can people find you if they want to follow up with you and get more information?
So, my website is mommyslifecoach.com. I'm sorry, Mommy's Life Coach. And my Instagram handle is Mommy's Life Coach. I also have a podcast, The Outrageous Mommy. And
that's perfect. We'll put all this into the show notes as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much for being here. This was such a great conversation.
I loved it. Thank you so much, Kim. So nice to meet you.
Thank you for listening to the Impostor Syndrome Files. If you're listening to this, chances are you struggle with imposter syndrome or other confidence issues too. Please know that you are in great company. As an executive coach and former high-tech leader, I spent years battling imposter syndrome. There were times in my corporate life when I was absolutely sure that this was the moment that everyone would figure out that I didn't belong in the room. But it never happened. And through the years, with the help of research, coaching, and other resources, I've learned to help myself and others overcome self-doubt and advance our careers with strength and confidence. If you'd like to continue this conversation, please join my Leading Women Facebook group, where women of diverse roles, levels, and backgrounds come together to ask questions, share challenges, and support one another in a safe, trusted space that's difficult to find in the workplace. Check out the link in the show notes for more information on how to find us. And please join us again next week for another episode of the Impostor Syndrome Files.